The minute he walked out on that stage, there was an audible.
Frank Sinatra was more than just the unmistakable voice behind countless timeless classics. To millions of fans around the world, Old Blue Eyes represented an era of style, confidence, and charisma that few entertainers have ever matched. As the unofficial leader of the legendary Rat Pack, he dominated stages, recording studios, and Hollywood alike, building a career that would influence generations of performers. Even decades after his passing in 1998, Sinatra's presence can still be felt almost everywhere in popular culture. His achievements are almost impossible to overstate. Frank Sinatra is widely regarded as one of the greatest singers of the 20th century, with an estimated 150 million records sold worldwide. His music continues to be streamed, purchased, and celebrated by new generations, proving that truly great artists never disappear.
And my dad knew that, and when he was way up there in years, he still said, I've got to get out to the people, see my supporters.
But perhaps the most meaningful part of his legacy isn't found in gold records or sold-out concerts. It's found in the family he left behind. Over the course of 4 marriages, Frank Sinatra became the father of 3 children, Nancy, Frank Jr., and Tina. Each chose a different path through life, yet all carried the Sinatra name into a new generation in their own unique way. Sadly, Frank Sinatra Jr. is no longer with us, leaving only Nancy and Tina to continue the family's remarkable story. Looking at everything they have accomplished, it's easy to imagine that Frank would have been incredibly proud of the lives they built and the way they preserved the Sinatra legacy. Today, we're taking a closer look at what happened to Frank Sinatra's children after growing up in the shadow of one of the biggest entertainment icons in history. We'll explore their careers, personal lives, relationships, and lasting contributions, while also seeing what became of Sinatra's grandchildren and how the famous family continues to leave its mark decades after Frank's final curtain call. The first stop on that journey is his oldest child, Nancy Sinatra. Born on June 8, 1940, to Frank Sinatra and his first wife, Nancy Barbato Sinatra, Nancy seemed destined for a life connected to music and entertainment.
Absolutely hilarious. There's nobody as funny as my dad was, nobody.
Right.
Following in her father's footsteps, she eventually became both a successful singer and actress, although forging her own identity wasn't always easy when the world constantly compared her to one of the biggest stars alive. Nancy was born in Jersey City, New Jersey, but her childhood involved several moves as her father's career rapidly expanded. When she was still very young, the family relocated to Hasbrook Heights before eventually settling in Toluca Lake, California, where Frank's booming Hollywood career placed the family at the center of the entertainment industry. Unlike many celebrity children who simply relied on famous parents, Nancy spent years preparing for a career of her own.
I just loved him. And that's where Dad learned his on-stage behavior. It was from Jack Benny.
She studied piano, took dance lessons, enrolled in drama classes, and received extensive vocal training from an early age. Those years of disciplined practice would eventually pay off, although success didn't arrive overnight. Her first major exposure came in 1957 when she appeared on her father's ABC variety television program. While the appearance introduced her to audiences, her early recordings struggled to gain traction in the United States. Ironically, her first significant success came overseas, where audiences in Europe and Japan embraced her music long before American listeners fully took notice. Everything changed in 1966. That year, Nancy released These Boots Are Made for Walkin', a bold, confident song that instantly transformed her from Frank Sinatra's daughter into a star in her own right. The single became an international sensation and remains one of the defining songs of the 1960s. Its unforgettable promotional television performances featured Nancy wearing her now famous knee-high boots alongside colorful go-go dancers, creating one of the most recognizable images of the swinging 60s.
Normal parents who had normal attitudes about raising children who they hoped one day would be normal.
Really?
Oh, sure.
Decades later, the look is still instantly associated with her name. Much of Nancy's success during this period came through her creative partnership with songwriter and producer Lee Hazelwood. He wrote and produced many of her biggest hits, while the pair also recorded several memorable duets together. Between 1966 and 1967 alone, Nancy placed an astonishing 13 songs on the charts, with arranger and conductor Billy Strange helping shape the signature sound that defined her recordings. Her catalog extended well beyond her biggest hit. Songs like Sugar Town, Summer Wine, Something Stupid, and her haunting version of Bang Bang, My Baby Shot Me Down became enduring favorites. Years later, Quentin Tarantino introduced that last recording to an entirely new generation when it opened his 2003 film Kill Bill Volume 1, once again proving the timeless appeal of Nancy Sinatra's music. Nancy Sinatra didn't limit herself to music. During the height of her popularity, she also built a successful acting career, appearing in several films alongside some of Hollywood's biggest names.
Oh, because that was a different life. That was the professional side of Frank Sinatra's career.
In 1965, she shared the screen with her father in the comedy Marriage on the Rocks, giving audiences the rare opportunity to see the famous father and daughter performing together. A year later, she starred opposite Peter Fonda in The Wild Angels, one of the defining counterculture films of the 1960s. Then, in 1968, she teamed up with Elvis Presley in Speedway, bringing together two of the decade's biggest entertainment icons in a single movie. While many stars from that era eventually stepped away from the spotlight, Nancy never completely retired from music. Even into her 80s, she continued finding new ways to connect with longtime fans. In 2013, she released the digital-only album Shifting Gears, proving that her passion for performing hadn't faded with age.
The career of being an entertainer of the success that those people had involves a lot of travel.
Then in 2020, Light in the Attic Records announced an extensive archival collection celebrating her remarkable career, introducing many of her classic recordings to a new generation of listeners. That same year, Nancy also launched Nancy's Boutique, an online store offering albums, collectibles, exclusive merchandise, and personally autographed memorabilia. For lifelong Sinatra fans, it became more than just a shop. It was another way to stay connected with one of the last living members of one of entertainment's most legendary families. Her personal life experienced both happiness and heartbreak. Nancy first married pop singer Tommy Sands in 1960. At the time, they were considered one of music's most glamorous young couples, but the marriage lasted only 5 years before ending in divorce. In 1970, Nancy found love again when she married Hugh Lambert. This marriage proved to be far more stable, and the couple remained together until Hugh's tragic death from cancer in 1985. Together, they raised 2 daughters, Angela Jennifer Lambert Paparazzi and Amanda Catherine Lambert Erlinger. Frank Sinatra made sure his granddaughters would have financial security, establishing trust funds worth $1 million for each of them. Angela, better known as A.J. Lambert, inherited the family's musical talent, although her path was very different from that of both her mother and grandfather. She first gained experience performing in punk and gothic rock bands before gradually embracing jazz, traditional pop, and classic standards.
I was, as I said, about 7, and it was a lot of, oh, so this is what Dad is doing when he's not home. You know, I was grasping.
Over time, listeners began noticing echoes of the Sinatra legacy in her performances, though she always worked to develop a style that felt distinctly her own. Her 2018 single, I Got It Bad, showcased a softer emotional side with a heartfelt piano-driven arrangement. Her younger sister, Amanda, chose an entirely different direction. Rather than pursuing fame on stage or in front of cameras, she built a career as a photographer and creative artist, preferring to stay behind the scenes. Unlike many celebrity children, Amanda has largely avoided the spotlight, living a much quieter life despite belonging to one of America's most recognizable entertainment families.
I was struck by the fact he wasn't afraid to do it. I remember emotionally a lot of things that went through my mind, but we had Christmases here, we had Thanksgivings here.
As Nancy continued preserving one branch of the Sinatra legacy, Frank Sinatra's only son faced a very different challenge. Born Francis Wayne Sinatra on January 10, 1944 in Jersey City, New Jersey, Frank Sinatra Jr. grew up with one of the most famous last names in the world. But having an internationally famous father wasn't always an advantage. Frank Sr.'s relentless touring schedule and demanding film career meant he spent long periods away from home, leaving Frank Jr. with relatively few childhood memories of having his father around. Even so, music quickly became his passion. From an early age, Frank Jr. dreamed of becoming a pianist, songwriter, and performer. Rather than trying to avoid comparisons with his father, he chose to pursue the same profession, fully aware of the enormous expectations that came with carrying the Sinatra name. Before his career truly began, however, his life took a terrifying turn. In December 1963, at just 19 years old, Frank Jr. was kidnapped from Harrah's Lake Tahoe by three men who hoped to collect a massive ransom from his famous father. The crime instantly became one of the biggest news stories in America. After 2 frightening days in captivity, Frank Jr. was safely released when Frank Sinatra paid the demanded $240,000 ransom, an amount worth roughly $2 million today. The kidnappers, Barry Keenan, Joe Amsler, and Johnny Irwin, were quickly identified, arrested, and convicted. Although each received substantial prison sentences, they ultimately served far less time than originally imposed. Years later, Keenan was found to have been suffering from severe mental illness at the time of the crime, a factor that became central to his legal defense. Remarkably, Frank Jr. refused to let the traumatic experience define his life. He returned to music almost immediately, determined to build the career he had always envisioned.
He has a lot of history here, and I think Vegas has always made him feel how great it have felt.
He began performing in clubs while still a teenager, and at just 19 years old, became the lead vocalist for Sam Donahue's orchestra. He also spent valuable time working alongside jazz legend Duke Ellington, gaining first-hand experience from some of the greatest musicians of his generation. Despite his undeniable talent, Frank Jr. spent much of his career living under the enormous shadow of his father. Critics and audiences constantly measured every performance against Frank Sinatra himself, making it incredibly difficult to establish an identity entirely his own. After years of modest success, he eventually joined his father's touring band in 1988, serving as musical director and conductor while also performing alongside him until Frank Sr.'s death in 1998. Following his father's passing, Frank Jr. remained active in entertainment, occasionally appearing in television shows and films, often playing fictionalized versions of himself. One memorable appearance came on The Sopranos, where he appeared during Tony Soprano's famous high-stakes poker game, delighting fans with his unexpected cameo. Frank Sinatra Jr.'s legacy didn't end with him. His son, Michael Sinatra, chose to follow the family's musical tradition, although on a much smaller and more intimate stage. Based in Las Vegas, Michael has built a career as a jazz vocalist, performing many of the timeless standards that defined the great American songbook. His repertoire frequently includes classics made famous by the Rat Pack, allowing audiences to experience a little piece of the Sinatra tradition through the next generation. While Michael never pursued the same level of worldwide fame as his grandfather, he has dedicated himself to preserving the style and sophistication that made the Sinatra name legendary. For longtime fans, seeing another Sinatra perform these beloved songs offers a reminder that the family's musical heritage continues to live on. Sadly, Frank Sinatra Jr.'s own journey came to an unexpected end on March 16, 2016. While touring in Daytona Beach, Florida, he suffered a fatal heart attack at the age of 72. His passing marked the loss of the only son of one of America's greatest entertainers, leaving Nancy and Tina as the last surviving children of Frank Sinatra. The youngest of those siblings is Christina Sinatra, better known simply as Tina Sinatra. Born on June 20th, 1948 in Los Angeles, California, Tina was the youngest child of Frank Sinatra and his first wife, Nancy Barbato Sinatra. She was only 3 years old when her parents divorced, meaning much of her childhood unfolded after her father's increasingly busy career had already transformed him into one of the world's biggest stars. Unlike Nancy and Frank Jr., Tina never dreamed of becoming a professional singer. Instead, she found herself drawn toward acting. She studied the craft seriously and even spent several years living in Germany, where she appeared opposite Hampton Fancher in the 1969 television miniseries Romeo and Julia 70. The international experience broadened her perspective before she eventually returned to the United States to continue studying under respected acting coach Jeff Corey. Throughout the late 1960s and early 1970s, Tina appeared in several popular television series, including It Takes a Thief, Adam 12, Mannix, and McCloud. Although she enjoyed acting, she later admitted that she never possessed the relentless ambition necessary to compete in Hollywood for the biggest roles. Ironically, despite having little interest in becoming a singer, Tina still shared the recording studio with her famous family. She joined Frank Sinatra, Nancy, and Frank Jr. on the 1968 holiday album, The Sinatra Family Wish You a Merry Christmas, creating one of the few occasions when the entire Sinatra family recorded together. As the years passed, Tina gradually realized her strengths lay elsewhere. Rather than remaining in front of the camera, she transitioned into the entertainment business as a theatrical agent, representing actors and working behind the scenes. It proved to be a career that suited her personality far better than constantly chasing auditions. Following Frank Sinatra's death in 1998, Tina accepted perhaps the most important responsibility of her life. Honoring her father's wishes, she assumed a leading role in managing and protecting his artistic legacy. From overseeing his films and recordings to helping preserve his image for future generations, Tina became one of the primary guardians of the Sinatra name. She also found success as a producer. In 1992, she produced the CBS miniseries Sinatra, an ambitious television project chronicling her father's remarkable life and career. More than a decade later, she served as a producer on the 2004 remake of The Manchurian Candidate, one of Frank Sinatra's most acclaimed films, helping introduce the classic story to modern audiences. In 2000, Tina shared her own perspective on growing up inside one of America's most famous families by publishing her memoir, My Father's Daughter, co-written with Jeff Copeland. The book offered readers an unusually personal glimpse into the private side of Frank Sinatra, revealing the father behind the global superstar. Her personal life, however, was marked by several relationships that ultimately didn't last. After ending an engagement to actor Robert Wagner in 1972, Tina married musician Wes Farrell in 1974, but the marriage ended in divorce 2 years later. She married Richard Cohen in 1981, though that relationship also ended after just 2 years. Today, Tina is believed to enjoy a quiet retirement in Beverly Hills. Unlike her brother and sister, she never had children, making Nancy's side of the family the branch through which the Sinatra name continues into future generations. Frank Sinatra's family story is a fascinating reminder that even the biggest legends eventually become fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, and grandparents. Behind the sold-out concerts, the Academy Awards, the flashing cameras, and the endless newspaper headlines was a man whose greatest legacy wasn't measured only in platinum records or blockbuster films. It was also measured by the people who carried his name long after he was gone. Each of his 3 children inherited something different from their famous father. Nancy inherited his passion for performing. Rather than living forever in Frank Sinatra's shadow, she built a career that stood proudly on its own. These Boots Are Made for Walkin' became one of the defining songs of an entire generation, proving she wasn't simply Frank Sinatra's daughter. She was Nancy Sinatra, an artist whose work would become timeless in its own right. Even decades later, she continues to embrace her fans and celebrate the music that made her famous, showing the same dedication that defined her father's extraordinary career. Frank Sinatra Jr. inherited perhaps the most difficult role of all. Carrying the Sinatra name as the only son of one of history's greatest singers came with enormous expectations. Every performance was compared to his father's. Every concert invited impossible comparisons. Yet he never stopped pursuing the career he loved. He became a respected musician, conductor, arranger, and performer in his own right, eventually working alongside his father during Frank's later tours. Although he never reached the same level of worldwide fame, he devoted his life to preserving the music that had become synonymous with his family's name. Then there was Tina. While her siblings found themselves pulled toward performing, Tina discovered that her greatest contribution would happen behind the scenes. Instead of standing under the spotlight, she chose to protect it. After Frank Sinatra's passing, she became one of the principal caretakers of his remarkable legacy, helping preserve his films, recordings, business affairs, and public image. Without people like Tina quietly working in the background, much of Frank Sinatra's history could easily have faded with time. Together, the 3 siblings demonstrated something many celebrity families never accomplish. Rather than competing against one another, each found a different way to honor the family name. The story doesn't end with them either. Through grandchildren like A.J. Lambert and Michael Sinatra, pieces of Frank Sinatra's artistic legacy continue to survive. A.J. has embraced classic standards while adding her own modern interpretation, and Michael has continued performing many of the timeless songs associated with both the Great American Songbook and the Rat Pack. Neither attempted to copy Frank Sinatra exactly, and perhaps that's why their work feels authentic. Instead of trying to replace a legend, they've focused on celebrating the music that inspired them. That may be the greatest lesson of the Sinatra family. True legacies aren't preserved by imitation. They're preserved by inspiration. Frank Sinatra himself understood better than anyone that every generation has to discover its own voice. Throughout his own career, he constantly reinvented himself, adapting from the big band era to Hollywood, television, Las Vegas, and beyond. In many ways, his children and grandchildren followed the very same philosophy. Some sang, some acted, some produced films. Others worked quietly behind the scenes. But each contributed something meaningful while carrying one of entertainment's most recognizable surnames. Nearly 3 decades have passed since Frank Sinatra's death in May 1998, yet his influence remains astonishingly strong. His songs continue to appear in movies, television series, commercials, sporting events, and streaming playlists around the world. Young listeners still discover classics like My Way, Fly Me to the Moon, I've Got You Under My Skin, and New York, New York, often without realizing those recordings were made generations ago. Few entertainers have ever managed to remain this relevant for so long. Perhaps that's because Sinatra represented something bigger than music. He represented confidence, elegance, resilience, and an unmistakable style that audiences still admire today. Those qualities helped build one of the greatest careers in entertainment history, but they also shaped the family he left behind. Of course, no family is perfect. There were divorces, personal struggles, heartbreaking losses, and the constant pressure that comes from living under one of the most famous names in American history. Being a Sinatra undoubtedly opened certain doors, but it also created expectations that few people could ever hope to meet. Every achievement was measured against an almost impossible standard. Yet despite those challenges, the Sinatra family endured. Nancy remains an enduring icon of the 1960s. Tina continues safeguarding her father's legacy. Frank Jr.'s musical contributions are still remembered by loyal fans, while the next generation ensures that the Sinatra name hasn't disappeared with time. For a man who once sang, "The best is yet to come," perhaps that message applies to his legacy as well. As long as new listeners continue discovering his music and future generations keep sharing his remarkable story, Frank Sinatra will never truly be gone. His voice may have fallen silent, but the legacy continues. If you enjoyed learning about what happened to Frank Sinatra's children and how they carried one of Hollywood's most legendary family names into the next generation, be sure to let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Which member of the Sinatra family surprised you the most? Was it Nancy's remarkable career, Frank Jr.'s perseverance despite impossible expectations, or Tina's quiet dedication to preserving her father's legacy? We'd love to hear your opinion. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss our next deep dive into the lives of Hollywood's biggest legends and the untold stories behind the stars you thought you knew. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.